This episode is rated M for mature audiences. The views and opinions expressed on this show are those of the speaker and do not necessarily reflect those of the PFC Entertainment Network or any of the affiliates that make this show possible.
This is the Pure Fury Creations Entertainment Network.
From the gridiron to the ball diamonds, from the hardwood to the ice rinks, from the fairways to the octagon and everywhere in between. If it makes headlines, it's fair game on the Sports Reel podcast on the PFC Entertainment Network. And we welcome you to the Sports Reel podcast live here on the PFC Entertainment Network as we are live streaming this through here on Riverside.fm along with the PFC Entertainment Network Facebook page and our YouTube channel. Along with Tim Sheridan, I am Jason Clouse. We certainly appreciate you tuning in here tonight. And yes, this will be available on the traditional RSS feed starting tomorrow. However, I have decided that we need to start doing this live stream more often than not because of the time sensitivity when you're talking about the world of sports. Because, Tim, as we have documented from week one here, since we've launched this particular show, things can change on a dime, second by second, it seems like. So we want to give people as close to real-time information as we possibly can. Before we get into the topics at hand, and we have several of them here tonight, how's things in your neck of the woods, my friend?
They're going good. Good as always. I spent this past week doing the same thing I probably bitched about doing the week before, and that was cleaning up leaves. Never fucking ending thing. And then when I'm not doing that, I'm at work. When I'm not doing that, I'm probably watching football because I did a lot of that over the weekend. So that's been life at the Sheridan residence. It's clean up leaves, wait for more to fall, and watch football and drink beer. So life is good. How about you?
Listen, things are trending in the right direction. I'm in a good place. I've made mention this on other shows here um, on the network this week. I I really am in a good place right now, and I feel good. I'm very hopeful. I'm very optimistic. I'm motivated. I'm inspired. And when all things are firing on all cylinders, it's a win for me and everybody that I include in my inner circle. And what you know, luck would have it, a lot of that is going to revolve around all of you guys here on the PFC network because we've got a lot of things in the works here. And as we're coming up to the middle of November, if you can believe that, and like this year has just flown by, right?
Yeah.
We're coming into the holiday season, and once you're in the holiday season, it is and, the rest of this year is going to go by like that, which is kind of a good thing because as we embark in a new year, we've got a lot of cool shit on the horizon for all of us here at the network, and I'm very excited about it. So things are good, man. My family's good. My everybody's good. So it's a good time right now.
Good.
So, like I said, we want to welcome those who have joined us live on the live stream. We've got a couple over on Facebook, one on YouTube, and one here on Riverside. So, actually, we have a chat, if you can believe it.
Oh, no shit. Well, yeah, we got one in Facebook there. I started waiting for somebody to jump in there. It's fucking me up, I do have to say, because I have you on my computer right here, and I look over, and it's like a couple seconds behind.
Right.
So it's really messing with me right now.
That happens. to kind of peel the curtain back, when we do ONTV, which as a programming note, myself and the other gentleman on that particular show will be live this Friday with our next episode of the Fatal Four Way. We take live calls on that show, and we have to keep tabs on the chat on Facebook. And much like you're saying, like I quit even worrying about it. I actually have Q do it for me because I can't host the show, pay attention to that, field the calls when they do come in, because it is on that delay. And you're right, it fucks me up bad. I'm like, wait
Yeah.
a minute, where am I at here? So I get it.
Yeah.
All the wonders of live. All right.
Yeah.
Um,
I can't look over there at it right now.
let's start with what happened last week in the National Football League. We'll run down the scores real quick here as to what we saw. Let me pull the graphic up. There it is. It can't go wrong if it's live, folks. All right, we saw the Baltimore Ravens with a 34 win over the Bengals. The Carolina Panthers, two in a row, my friend, with a win over the Giants overseas, actually 20-17. The
Yeah,
Patriots
when you
with the
breaking that
19.
gear out, Jason?
I wasn't going to go a second week in a row without representing, and this is the first time that they've won back to
Oh,
back
there it is. I
games.
see it.
Yeah, see, right there. Or that for you, pal.
Super Bowl contenders.
Calm down. Calm down. All right. The Patriots with the 19-3 win over the Chicago Bears. I'm sure we're going to break that down a little bit. The Buffalo Bills picked up a win over the Colts, 30-20. Kansas City Chiefs remain undefeated with a 16-14 win over the Broncos. The Saints with a big win over the Falcons, 20-17. The 49ers beat the Buccaneers 23-20. Pittsburgh with a big win over the Washington Commanders, 28-7. Minnesota Vikings 12-7 winners over the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Hold on a
What a
second.
barn burner.
I didn't get to watch that game. Did you watch that?
I just saw the highlights.
I think every one of those 12 points was a field goal, wasn't it?
Yes, that is accurate.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So we'll get to the way that Minnesota's trending here soon. I know they're 7-2, but against the Jaguars. So we'll get to that. You can finish up.
All right. The Chargers with a 27-17 win over the Titans. The Eagles with a big win over their division rivals, the Cowboys, 34-6. The Cardinals picked up a win over the Jets, 31-6. The Detroit Lions, we're going to break this down, at 26-23 winners over the Houston Texans, and Miami finished the week out with a 23-15 win over the Los Angeles Rams. Where do you want to start here, pal?
Oh, shit. Okay. So I only watched a handful of games this week. The Baltimore Cincinnati game, probably the best game of the week. Exciting. Like, I stayed up late for that one. That one was right down to the wire. Super exciting game. Both those teams, Cincinnati starting to trend in a good direction. I don't know if it's a little too late in the season, but I think they're starting to trend that way. I just don't know if it's going to be enough to save them. Baltimore, that's still a scary team. Like that's the one that I got my eye on right now is in the AFC as possible contending to knock out the Chiefs out of this thing, but at the same time, Lamar can't win playoff games, so I'm not too worried about that. Other games I watched: Pittsburgh again, still on a roll. That team is really starting to look good. That defense is elite, and there's another one in the AFC there that you got to watch out for. Russell Wilson still doesn't seem like watching him. He's doing good, but it almost seems like he's struggling at the same time. Like he's getting really lucky with some floater passes that are hitting their target, but other than that, like he still seems a little off. And with them being a little off, it's a little scary that they're still doing so good. But I think the defense is carrying that team. Oh, that Minnesota game, didn't watch
Is
it.
it a comfort
What's
level,
that?
do you think, with Russell Wilson? Has he just not found preferred footing within this program yet.
It could be. You think this is probably why I think the fourth or fifth game that he started there.
Hmm.
He's won all of them, so it's not like they're losing, but it just seems like there's something off there. Does it? I mean, have you watched? Does it seem that way to you too?
Yeah, he just isn't comfortable. He's, I don't know. There's something off. We watched him for years in Seattle. Like he was the king of Seattle. Then he went to Denver, and I don't know if it's the change of scenery, if he just isn't able to quickly adapt to a new team, a new coaching scheme, a new environment like other players have in the past. I'm not sure what it is, but you
Yeah,
make a great point. Even as unsettled as he appears to be on the surface, they're still finding ways to win. So what's going to happen
yeah,
as we move into the later weeks here, going into the playoffs, or looking at the playoffs, once he gets his footing, Pittsburgh becomes a very dangerous team for anybody in the AFC. That is, and I mean Mike Tomlin. If they don't have a statue erected of this guy by the time it's all said and done outside of the catch-up field, something is terribly wrong because he is the one that has really kept this team relevant for an extended amount of time.
I think 20 something years now, right?
Yeah,
Like I think he's one of the longest standing head coaches left in the NFL. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think he's ever actually had a losing season.
I don't believe he has.
Like that's just, I mean, and if you can't put him on the list of the top five best coaches in the NFL ever, I don't know who you could put on that list. You know what I mean? Like to go that long in the same program, not have a losing season, and that team is still relevant every year. I mean, it's pretty much damn near a playoff team every year. I know they haven't hit it every year, but there's been years that they're 9-8 and they just miss it. But like that team, I mean, he's an awesome coach. I think any player would go there and have just an incredible amount of respect for him and be grateful that they get a chance to play for a coach like that. But yeah, I think when you're talking about Russell, I think the longer he plays in that system, the more he gets comfortable, the more dangerous that team gets. And I still think he's in that path of trying to find his spot there. And once he figures that out, I mean, he's gonna. Who knows? The sky's the limit there. I mean, with the way the NFL shaping right now, I don't know if this is that year for them because there's a lot of really good teams that have shown up that are going to be hard to beat. And there's a couple of them this week. We'll go over both those games. It just seems impossible to beat them now. So I don't know how far they'll go in that, but just another just really good team, exciting to watch. That was another game that I watched, and uh, just a lot of fun to watch that team right now. Not as explosive as some of the other teams, but some of those passes that Wilson is making are insane. And I don't know if I'd chalk him up to luck. He's dropping those passes in there, and his receivers are catching them. And I don't know how he's not getting picked off, but it's working out for him. But he's always kind of been that way. He's been just a lob thrower and just throw it out there and let his receivers go up and get it, and it's always worked out for him. But yeah, I think maybe another 3 more weeks down the line, and another 3 more weeks is pretty deep in the season. We are now officially over the halfway point in the season. We're kind of winding down. There's 8 weeks left. It doesn't. I mean, I
Isn't
can't
that
believe it's
crazy?
gone by this fast. Yeah,
Right.
like we're 8 weeks until regular season's over, and then we start talking playoff football. It's 2 months. We're gonna be talking playoff football before we know it.
It is
Um,
it is insane to think about because we started this show right at the conclusion of week 1 of the NFL
yeah,
season. And we missed 1 week a couple of weeks ago, but we have been here throughout the duration and it's like, wait a minute, how did we get to this point already? But we have a football team that
yeah,
has we have a football team that we are goddamn excited about for the first time. Well, not for the first time, but this era of Detroit Lions really has us excited and looking forward to these games. As we embarked on this season, we'll get to the Lions here in a little bit, but um,
Yeah.
you made mention of you wanted to break down the Minnesota Vikings and what we would call a
But
less than stellar outing this past weekend. If you're having a hard time with the Jacksonville Jaguars, there's some issues, like deep
yeah.
rooted issues that need to be addressed sooner rather than later. Would you agree with that?
Oh, I would definitely 100% agree with that. I know their record isn't showing it, but I think we're seeing the downfall of Minnesota this season. Um, ever since they faced the Lions, they've been on a gradual fall. They're still winning games, but their production is going way down. Sam Darnold came into the season looking like an MVP contender, and now he can't even put a touchdown on the board. I mean, you win a game against Jacksonville with 4 field goals. Like that's not something you want. I mean, you still won,
Right.
but it's not something you want to hang your hat on. And I just think that it's good news for Detroit, but I think this is the downfall of Minnesota. And I think the next time they face a hard team, they're going to catch another loss. You don't happen to have their what their schedule is, do you?
For
To kind
Minnesota,
of see, yeah, to see what it is for the rest of the year. Kind
stand
of
by,
chalk it up to.
and I will
Okay.
pull that up right now.
All right, you keep pulling that up, and yeah, I just Sam Darnold is falling off, and he's had the tendency of doing this with teams over the years, and maybe that's why he's starting for I think it's his fourth or fifth different team now.
Okay. Here is what the Minnesota Vikings are looking at moving forward. Um, this week they have Tennessee. The
They should.
24th, they are at Chicago, then Arizona, home against Atlanta, home against the Bears, at Seattle, home against the Packers, at Detroit.
So I think they'll go 3-5 for the rest of the season
Yeah.
and cap out at what 10-7.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's going to be their record because they got some tough matchups. They're not going to beat Atlanta. They're not going to beat Detroit. They'll probably beat Chicago. Chicago. I mean, we'll go over that game in a second, but that team is just they were in the garbage heap, and then they started crawling out of it, and they're right back in it again. I don't know what's going on with that team, but yeah, I think Minnesota's gonna finish out 10-7, and that, that it's good news for the Lions because I think the Lions will finish out much better than that. I mean, I'm honestly thinking right now, Lions are probably going to go 15-2 in my
Damn.
estimations. Yeah, I think they'll lose one more game this season, but I could be wrong. Who knows? Any given Sunday, but just looking at Minnesota's schedule there, I only see them winning three out of the next 7. So that team's on a complete downfall. The only other team in the North that we really have to watch out for in that aspect is Green Bay because I do think Green Bay has a good team. I fucking hate Green Bay,
Right.
but they do have a good team, and I don't think they'll beat us again. I'm really waiting to see what happens with them this week. I know they're going to get Chicago this week, I believe,
Mm-hmm.
and I want to see if the Lion hangover stands with them if they end up losing their next game after the Lions because that'd be fucking hilarious.
Wouldn't that be
But yeah,
something?
that team's on. Yeah, like especially against Chicago, that's just I don't even know which team's worse now, Chicago or Carolina.
I'm gonna go Chicago just because.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
we can throw the
it's
Giants in that.
right. And this is the part of the. I mean, for the NFC North, generally speaking, how the North shapes out is kind of determined by week 3 or 4 of the
Yeah,
season that had been. This year has been completely different, where the NFC North has seemingly been the powerhouse, division. Now at this stage of the season, you're starting to see more of the separation in between the teams. The
yeah.
the Chicago Bears, like I don't like use I don't know what the hell is going on over there, but it's not good. Yeah, every time you
But
turn around, their shit in the bed in some way or another. It's
Yeah.
if you're a Bears fan, you're not having a good time right now.
So what I think it is, I'm really breaking it down. I think a lot of it's coaching. Caleb Williams has talent, and he showed that this year. He needs a lot of growing up to do. They've lost games. I've heard him come out and say that he did his part and kind of put the loss on his defense. You don't fucking do that. You don't do that at all. You're a team leader. You take the blame for the loss. I mean, have you ever seen Patrick Mahomes stand up and say they lost because of their defense? Have you ever seen him stand up and say they lost? I mean, he had Kadarius Toney last year, fucking not catching anything and balls popping right out of his hands, and he never once blamed Kadarius Toney for the losses that they took last year. He stood up and said, it was a team effort. We lost as a team. We didn't do good enough. But then you got Caleb Williams out there saying, I did my part. That's not a leader. None of the other people on that team are ever gonna fucking respect you enough to even want to play with you if you sit there and act like that. Like he's got a lot of growing up to do. He's got talent. I think they have a coaching issue, honestly. And I don't know who they're ever going to get to actually want to go into that program to coach, because I've heard a lot of rumors that everybody wants Ben Johnson to go there, and Ben Johnson's not going to go there. He doesn't want to go to a program that has that much issues to where he's going to have to start over and try to build that program back up out of nothing. Um, it, there's too much going on there, and I think that's just that team needs just to be blown apart and built back up from the ground up, and that includes GM, coaching, everything. Everything needs to change.
It's a couple of weeks ago we said that about the Cleveland Browns and
Yeah,
how everything was just imploding for that program. The
it
Chicago
hasn't gotten any
Bears,
better.
huh?
Said, and it hasn't gotten any better for them.
No, no, and it doesn't look like it's going to anytime soon. They
Mm-mm.
they have a lot of loose ends that are going to follow them for the next few years financially. But you look at the Chicago Bears, one of the most celebrated franchises in the history of the National Football League. As somebody who has an appreciation and a fundamental level of respect for the franchise, I do. It's the Chicago Bears. I don't root
Yeah,
for them, but I do respect the franchise. I as if I was a hardcore stereotypical Chicago Bears fan, I would be doing everything I possibly could to rattle the cages in Chicago to get to force some change. We
yeah,
started to see that here in Detroit when Matt Millen was here.
yeah,
People were really starting to find ways to revolt against him to the point to where, and who knows what the ultimate choice was or what prompted him to finally leave the team. But for the longest time, man, like we were trying to find ways to get this man out of his office because he was incapable of doing what needed to be done for whatever reason. Chicago has that problem now. And if this is where the voice of the fan base can really be influential if you choose to. And unfortunately, if you want to see change on that level, you're going to have to hit them where it hurts, and that's the pocketbook. You may have
yep,
to stop going to the games and paying all these stupid prices that facilitates all of this. Is it difficult? Yes. Is it possible? Also, yes. How bad do you want to win? Is what it comes down to.
yeah. Well, I think really what they have to do is kind of do what Detroit did, and they just blew up their entire front office. Got rid of them all, started over fresh. When they
Mhm.
brought Brad Holmes in and then they hired Dan Campbell. You got to start from the top because that's where the changes need to be made. I mean, I've been saying this since week one, and we've been talking that Chicago makes the same mistake all the time is that they sit there and ditch on their quarterbacks who could grow into something, and they sit there and just keep ditching them, and they just keep drafting first round quarterbacks hoping to hit on one. You know what I mean? And it's not working out. Like, stop doing that and start just building. Just get rid of everybody up front and get some people in there who know what the hell they're doing. To be
Right.
honest, like the Lions had this same damn problem forever. Like, if you don't get rid of the people up top and you don't give your front or your office the ability to make the changes that need to be made, then you're not going to get any better. I mean, you're seeing the same shit going down in Dallas right now. Jerry Jones doesn't give his people any control over what the team does. And the team fucking sucks. If you don't trust your GM and you don't trust your coaches, then you need to fire them and get some people in there that you can trust. I don't know if it's a trust thing with Jerry Jones or is it just an ego thing with him. That's another team that's kind of in the same situation that Chicago is. They fucking suck. Like Dallas, for a team that has not like I mean the roster's the fucking complete same as it was last year. They didn't add any pieces. They didn't really take away any pieces. And they were a playoff team last year. What the fuck happened? Like that, I know they've been dealing with some injuries, but like that team is in the shitter too. Like it is, I probably one of the top, I mean, the bottom 5 teams in the NFL right now. You go from a playoff team, don't change anything, and like next thing you can't win a fucking game. The same thing. You need Jerry Jones needs to either sell the team or just fucking hire Belichick and give him control. You want to win something, hire Belichick, give him control. Just take a step back, let it happen. Because I Belichick's sitting out there right now. I don't see him going to Chicago. It's too much of a clusterfuck. But I guarantee he'd go to Dallas. If you let him have control, you make him the GM and the coach just the way that he prefers it, and let him have control, that will be a winning program. Next year. Guaranteed.
Here's the problem. And you already nailed it as you were laying that out. Jerry Jones is the problem. Jerry Jones's ego is the problem. Jerry Jones is the Vince McMahon of the National Football League, where all this money, all this power, all this prestige has altered his vision of reality. He thinks that he can create his own world and not take into consideration any realm of reality. You have to be realistic if you're going to embark in something like this. It got him to this point, but he has plateaued in
Yeah.
terms of you're not going to get any better if you do not relinquish some of the control. Why? Because shit evolves.
Yeah.
Even in the NFL, even in the business practices of the NFL, Jerry Jones has gotten to a point in his mind he has achieved this amount of success to where he can build a $3 billion stadium, which apparently now needs curtains, whatever the fuck
Yeah. What the
everybody's
fuck
having it.
happened there?
I mean, what are we doing? But as the business has evolved, Jerry Jones has stopped because he
Yeah.
feels like he's on top of the world. Well, the world keeps moving, pal. And you are starting to see that. Bill Belichick is your savior. He is
Yeah.
out there right now with nothing to do. Now is that open your checkbook and pay that man whatever the fuck it is that he wants. And I guarantee you within 2 years, you will be representing possibly the NFC in the Super Bowl. You're going to have to go through Detroit in order for that to happen at this stage, but you're going to stand a hell of a lot better chance of getting more wins in that win column than you are right now. Dak is
Yeah.
out again, hamstring, done for the season. The entire team is a dumpster fire. You've got to do something, man, because again, you're going to start chipping away at your fan base, and those are the ones who are supplying your salary. So what? It's not rocket science. It doesn't
No,
have to
it's
be
not.
that difficult.
I mean, you look at it. If Belichick was there this year, do you think that Dak would have got the highest contract in the NFL ever? Fuck no.
Mm-mm.
No. He's not about paying quarterbacks the highest contracts in the NFL ever. Because quarterbacks is one position. It's the most important position. But if you can't afford to put pieces around your quarterback, offensive line, receivers, quality running backs. I mean, they had a chance to get Derrick Henry, but they couldn't afford him because they had to pay Dak.
Right.
Your defense, the defense is actually solid there. They've been playing a little sloppy. They've had a few injuries this year. This past game, the defense actually looked a lot better. I do give them credit there. I did watch that game. The defense looked better. They still lost, but like that shit would have never went down if Belichick was in control of that team. But I don't see that as a possibility because Jerry Jones won't admit that he's fucking dumb,
Right.
and he needs to stop trying to be the GM and be the owner and just let somebody else do it. You want to fucking win. You want the team to make. Either way, they're still making money. That stadium is packed every week. It's still the Dallas Cowboys. But eventually, if the fans want to see a change, stop going to the fucking games. Just like you said about Chicago, hit them where it hurts. You want to see a change, just stop going to the fucking games. Let that stadium sit empty for a fucking few weeks and see if he decides to fire McCarthy and let somebody else have control.
Mhm.
And I don't even know if it's McCarthy. I've said this before on this show. Is it really McCarthy or does he just have no call on what's really going on? Does
No
Jerry Jones call
support.
down
Right.
and yeah, and give him a fucking game plan and say stick to this? And he just has to stick to what Jerry Jones wants to. I have no fucking idea the inner workings of that team, but whatever it is, it's not working. So blow it up, start over.
I'm with you on that one for sure.
Yep. And then we'll go to the opposite. And before we even get to the Lions, I want to get to the Chiefs.
Hmm.
Um, I don't know what the hell's going on with the Chiefs there. I love the Kansas City Chiefs. They are and I say that in all seriousness, they are the worst, best team in the NFL. Like that, that team cannot lose. Like I don't know what the hell they're doing. Patrick Mahomes is having such a mid season. He is not doing shit this season, but they're still winning. They're doing enough in every game to win. They are literally, when they play a tough team, they play out of their minds and they play out of their minds just enough to beat a tough team. When they play a bad team, they play shitty enough just to beat that team. This isn't the normal Kansas City Chiefs that we're used to seeing. It's not that high powered offense. And you were just talking about that a minute ago, how the game has changed over the years, but the game really has changed just in the last couple of years. We went from the era of the high powered offenses, the explosive offenses, and it was a throwing league or the quarterback. Everybody wanted that rushing quarterback. The Josh Allen's, like everybody wanted that. The Lamar Jacksons, even Patrick Mahomes used to be that guy. Really good on his feet and he run for a lot. It is completely switched. Like the league is switched back over to like smash mouth football. You need a good running back. You got to run it down their throats, and then when you do that enough, then you can open up some play action and actually make some passes. um, the Chiefs, I don't know, like they had no right to win that game, no right, but they did.
Right.
Why can't they lose? Can you answer me that? Why cannot the Kansas City Chiefs lose? Like, what is going on with that team right now? Like, they don't. They find a way to win every fucking week. That was unbelievable. You should have seen me because I couldn't watch it. I'm sick of these out of market game bullshits. Like, I pay so much money. There's so many different things to watch games. I could not watch the fucking Chiefs game, but I could listen to it like over audio only. And I'm sitting there listening to it and I'm going, oh, they're about to lose their first game. They're going to kick this 35-yard field goal. And the game's going to be, and they find a way to fucking block it. I don't think they've not even blocked a single fucking field goal this year, but they find a way to block that one. Why can't the Kansas City Chiefs lose?
Well, if you're going to ask a contingent of the NFL fan base, they would suggest that there's some
I don't want to hear the
shenanigans going.
refs
You knew I had to bring it
because the
up.
refs didn't block that field goal.
No. I saw this headline come down Monday that suggested that Mahomes was picked up on a live mic, a CBS live mic, talking to a referee, asking him to let him know when somebody was coming around his left or some shit like that. Like there was
No, that
some.
was actually, I'll let you finish, but I'll tell you what it actually was.
No, go ahead because I didn't buy into this, but I started to
No,
see
okay. So
legs with this, and I'm like, what the fuck is happening right now?
So I watched another thing and they were breaking it down. What he was actually asking the ref was let them know when his guys get close to the line so he makes sure that his guys aren't lining up off sides, which is a normal thing. When the guys line up on the line, like the receivers and everything,
Mm-hmm.
they usually look down at the refs and the refs will point to them if they're okay. So they're not over the line, so that they know where they are. So Patrick wanted to know exactly to make sure, like, if his guys aren't lining up right, let him know, let him know it, so that way he can address it in the huddle to make sure his guys aren't lining up off sides. Is where he was going with that.
Well, you take something like that, and
Yeah,
the social media aspect just takes it and runs with it to the point to
yeah,
where once it comes back around, there's not even hardly a sliver of actual truth as to what went into it. You know what I mean? And
mm-hmm.
that's one of the poisonous and toxic aspects of social media. It does have good, but it's aspects like that because what you're doing is you're damaging the integrity of Mahomes, of the Chiefs as a team, as the NFL, as an entire product, because there's already rumblings, and we've seen this in the last several years. All this is a script. Everything is
Yeah.
scripted. We know who's going to the Super Bowl a year and a half before it actually is played. Come on, you know.
Well, have you
Let's.
seen the leaked script for the Super Bowl this year?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the 54-50 game,
Yeah.
Chiefs and Lions.
Mm-hmm. I agree
Yeah,
it's going to be
I
Chiefs and Lions, but it ain't going to be something like that.
no, not two defenses that are that tough. You're never going to score that many points against two defenses like that. But yeah, I totally agree that that's the. I mean, that's my pick for the two teams. It sounds like that's your pick for the two teams in the Super Bowl
Mm-hmm.
this year. Best team in the AFC, best team in the NFC. Um, and in the same aspect of, you can look at that game and go, how can't the Chiefs lose a game? And then you watch the Lions game this week and go, who the fuck can beat the Lions? Because Houston sure gave it their best shot and still couldn't do it. I mean, I, Jared Goff threw 5 interceptions, 5, and still they won that game against a tough Houston team. I mean, Houston's not a joke. They're a tough team. They were 7-2 coming into that game. Like that.
Undefeated at
That's
home.
that's a tough. Or there's, yeah, and like you can't beat the Chiefs, and now who's going to beat the Lions? The only team that, like, and I told you earlier that I see the Lions going 15-2. I think the only game they're going to lose this year is against for the rest of the year is against the Bills. And it's not because the Bills is the better team, because I think they'd beat them in a Super Bowl if that matchup ever came to be. But I think it's going to be so late in the season that you're gonna have to start resting some people to start getting ready for the playoffs. And I think the Lions are at their point where they'll start making smart decisions like that. I think Dan Campbell's coming down to earth a little bit to make smart decisions like that, just like not playing Zadarius Smith this past week. I know we were all hyped up last week to see what he would do, but he did the smart thing for the player and decided, since it was supposed to be his bye week anyways, he wasn't going to make him play, and he was going to also offer him some time to go down and to check his house in Florida, because his last team didn't offer him any time to go check out his property since the hurricanes came through. So he said, take a couple days, go down there, check it out. We're going to give you this week off. I'm guessing he gave him a choice to travel with the team, and he decided to travel with the team because he was there. He was coaching up the guys on the defense, and I mean, watching him do that, that's a leader right there. Like, he was giving them hints about what was going on. Next thing you know, they come back out and they end up getting like 4 sacks after that. So
Right.
that guy's fucking smart, and I can't wait to see what he does with this team, because just standing there coaching these younger guys, they were listening, and then they were starting to get the pressure that they needed, and they were able to hold off Houston in the second half to 0 points. I mean, just completely shut them down with two takeaways. Um, Davis got 2 awesome interceptions. I mean, were you watching that game?
S- to- I I saw a little bit of the first half, and I saw where it was
Okay.
going. Um, I had company over here, so I was kind of going back and forth, right? And I came up for halftime and I saw what the score was on at halftime, and the second half it started. Goff had thrown another interception. I'm like, fuck this. Like I see, okay, this is our second loss of the season. I just chalked it up, bro. I didn't know until the next morning that they came back and won because I was just like, oh, I
I
can't
know it
watch
was
this. Right, I'm
fucking.
just not. I just can't. Um, so I was actually getting my shit together to make the graphics for the show here, and I went into the result. I'm like, wait, what? You've got
Yeah,
to be shitting me. So Detroit is no joke. Like it's not always going to be your 50 plus yard or 50 plus point the dominating smash mouth football. Like there are going to be teams like this, like Houston, that's going to push them to the wire. But man, talking about grit, like that's kind of like the tagline of this team. But it's on
yeah,
display every single week in every scenario that is thrown at them. And now this is what separates the elite from the great because the Lions are becoming an elite team in the NFL right now.
yeah. Like 100%. Like teams that can. I mean, when your quarterback throws 5 interceptions, you have no right to win a game.
Right.
Like that should wrap it up. But they have shown now that I mean, it started with the Minnesota game because that was the only other really close game this season that they came back and or that they ended up winning. They shown now that not only can they you know play shitty as hell and still find a way to win, but they can stay in these games against tough teams and just grit it out and make it happen and just get enough to win that game. And that's the thing that separates good teams from championship level teams, just like you just said. That's why the Chiefs are so good because in any situation they can find a way to win. And now the Lions are at that situation where even when they're not playing good, they still find a way to win. And that's what makes the Chiefs and the Lions, in my opinion, the two scariest teams in the NFL right now. And I mean, all around. I mean, those two kicks by Jake Bates, like, oh my God, you couldn't get any closer to those not being any good, but they were still good. Like that kid came up clutch to win that game for him, just like he came up clutch to win the Minnesota game for him. And that's what you need. That's you go back to the NFC Championship game last year. Dan Campbell didn't trust our kicker enough to kick those field goals that would have put him in the win column. But I think he's starting to trust Jake Bates enough now to kick those field goals when they're needed, to not have to sit there and struggle and try to go for it on fourth. You know, if you got a 58-yard field goal, send Jake Bates out there. That fucking kid, he was selling. What did they say? It was a brick salesman. 7 months
18
ago,
months
and now
ago.
he's
Yeah.
yeah, like or 18 months ago, yeah, and now he's I think he's 10 for 10 in the NFL now on 50 plus yard field goals or some shit. Like I don't remember the exact stat, but the kid is good and everything is just trending so good for this team. And like I said, I'm calling 15-2 with Minnesota 10-7 is what I'm going to call. Waiting to see what Green Bay does, but I think by week 14 they can have the North wrapped up, and they'll just be playing depending on what the rest of the NFL doing. I know Eagles are 7-2 right now. If you're playing for a first round bye, which I'm sure they will be, they'll probably be playing pretty tough to the end, depending on what the Eagles do. So it's just going to come down to those last few games, and that's why I said with the Bills game, I think they lose that one, but I know they can beat the Bills. But I might take that back if they're still playing for that first round bye. If by that game comes around and they need that first round bye, they're going to send everybody out there and just give it all to win it because that first round bye is so important. That's just one less game through the playoffs, and you get that 2 week break before you go back into those few games and another 2 week break, and that's what everybody wants. They just want that rest time for their guys. So it's going to be, I don't know. We'll see which way it goes, but I think Detroit right now is the most dangerous team in the NFC. I, that was a I felt like I was gonna puke at certain points of that game, like, and I was screaming at my TV because Goff kept throwing interceptions, and I was getting fucking pissed. and they still find a way. And then I woke up the whole house at fucking almost midnight. Like Amy asked me in the morning, like, so how did the Lions win? I'm like, how do you know the Lions won? She's like, because you fucking woke me up. I was like, I couldn't help it. Like he kicked that field goal and I went fucking nuts. Everybody was in bed sleep. I went fucking nuts. Like I couldn't believe that they came back to win that. Like that's not the Lions don't do that. They showed a stat going into that half that the Lions were 0-15 while trailing by double
10
digits
plus
under
or
Dan
something.
Campbell.
Yeah.
Yeah, or 10 plus, yeah, under Dan Campbell. And they came back and they won that against a tough team. Like this wasn't like they went like 10 points down at the half against the Jaguars
Right.
or Carolina, or New York. Like the Houston's a tough fucking team. And they came back and won it. Like it's crazy. I'm so fucking excited to see the rest of this season. Like I want to rush through these next 8 weeks to get to the fucking playoffs, but at the same time, it's like I'm enjoying watching them so much.
Right. I just pulled up Green Bay's remaining schedule just to kind of get an idea of what they're looking at and how the rest of their regular season could shape up. Here's what they've got.
Are they 6-3 right now?
Yes, they are.
Okay.
Yep. 6-3, sitting in the third spot in the NFC North. So here's what they've got. They've got at Chicago versus San Francisco versus Miami, at Detroit, at Seattle versus the Saints, at the Vikings, and then home against the Bears. That's what they're looking at.
They might go 10-7 too.
Yeah.
I'm thinking 10-7 too. So if the Lions could wrap up, win 4 more games, they could, clinch the North right there.
Mm-hmm.
So I think by week 14, the Lions could clinch it, depending on how those games fall out. But they might go 10-7 too. I give them 4 wins through that stretch. So yeah, and I put the Lions at 15-2, and those teams at 10-7. So yeah, I mean they could clinch in the next 4 weeks, really, and then you're just chasing that first round bye. Because Chicago, right. I mean, we don't even have to count them anymore. That team's back in the dumps again. But yeah, that's how the North's wrapping up. The only thing, I mean, you're looking at what is the NFC looking at right now? I know the Eagles are 7-2. Washington, yes. I think, is 7-3 or 6-3. Okay. These bye weeks are fucking me up because some of them had bye weeks already.
Right. All right. Here's what we're looking at. NFC East right now, the Eagles are on top with a 770. I'm going by their percentage, their win percentage as they have them listed here. Eagles for the East, obviously the Lions for the North, the Falcons, well in control of the South.
And yeah, but their records, I think their record's 6-3 or some shit.
6-4 right now.
6-4,
but
yeah.
You look at Tampa Bay, who's in the number 2 spot, they're 4-6. So,
yeah.
It's, and then Arizona is on top of the NFC West right now, with at 6-4.
Yeah, we already walked all over them though.
Mm-hmm. If the playoffs were to start today,
Lions would have first round bye.
Yep, it would be Detroit, Philadelphia, Atlanta, Arizona, Minnesota, Washington, and Green Bay for the NFC. For AFC, it would be the Kansas City, Buffalo, Pittsburgh, Houston, Baltimore, Chargers, and Denver.
And everywhere that points looks at a Lions Chiefs Super Bowl right there.
Absolutely.
Because Josh Allen can't beat Mahomes in the playoffs, and fucking Lamar can't beat Mahomes in the playoffs, and I don't see any of those other teams beating Mahomes in the playoffs. And Detroit is just, I mean, the only other tough team in the NFC right now is the Eagles, and I don't think the Eagles are good enough to beat Detroit. I don't think they have it this year. They're a damn good team and they're starting to come together. But the only reason they're good is, Saquon's running all over the place. He ain't gonna run against Detroit like that.
Right.
Detroit's got one of the best run stop defenses in the league. And if you watch this past weekend and you don't believe me, Joe Mixon was getting fucking visibly upset that he couldn't do anything, and he's been one of the top running backs in the league this year. He was getting pissed, throwing f bombs and throwing shit around because he couldn't do anything against Detroit. Like you cannot run against Detroit. If anything, you're gonna get an occasional long ball given up and some slot passes that are going to come across the field that they're going to give up, but you're not going to run against them. So if your team is really based off the run, it's not going to work against Detroit like at all. And I think that's going to get even worse now with Zadarius Smith joining the team. And on top of that, to even try to pass, you're going to have that much interior pressure coming at you, and then you're going to have somebody setting an edge and coming at you. Like this defense going to get even more dangerous this coming up week. So as long as the offense can get back on track, I know this past week was bad. I do want to say, like, if you watch that first half of that game, I think my personal opinion, and don't quote me on this, but I think something was wrong with Goff on that day. From his very first pass of the game, that just came off his hand weird. He didn't come anywhere near completing that pass. Something was wrong with him. I don't know if his wrist was bothering him, if he wasn't feeling good. It almost seemed like there might have been a sickness going around. I don't know. I mean, I don't know if this is true or not, but I'm sure you've seen the pictures of it and questioning whether or not James Houston shit himself on the field.
Yeah.
Did you see like was there like some type of weird flu bug that was running through the locker room? Like Golf looked very off on that day. Like there was a lot of passes for somebody who's been one of the most consistent passers in the league this year to be that far off. Something was going off with the team this week. So I'm hoping they get over that, and by the time we talk about this week coming up against Jacksonville, he's back to his normal form. But I don't see the Eagles being able to do it. Atlanta, I mean, the other tough team in the NFC is Atlanta. I don't see them being able to beat Detroit. I I just see a clear run to the Super Bowl this year for them. And as long as they just keep, just keep fucking scoring. That's all they got to do is just keep scoring, finding a way to win. I mean, who's going to stop them? I mean, in your opinion, who do you think is going to be their toughest matchup?
Washington scares me.
Do they?
Washington. Yep. There's something about Washington that they're on my radar. The Eagles, obviously, you can never really count them out. Those would be the two that I would be most. At the start of the season, it was San Francisco, but
Yeah,
by
but they're
week 5, 6, you started to see what's happening with San Francisco, and it's like, okay, we can kind of take them off the table. But this is where we started to see Washington start making some headway. Philadelphia, shit is starting to fall into place for them. Those Washington and Philadelphia are the two that I would be most worried about at this stage.
Yeah, I could agree with you on Washington. I've kind of had my, and I've said that before this season. Daniels is he's really special. I just don't know how he's going to hold up to the pressure of the playoffs quite yet. Um, Rookie QBs tend to fall to pressure, and we're going to kind of see. I mean, Pittsburgh just beat him this past week and didn't really make it look easy. It was a back and forth game, but I mean, it showed that they're still beatable. That they still got some work to do. And I don't think that defense is strong enough to really stand up to Detroit's offense. And in the same sense, I don't know if he's good enough to beat a defense like Detroit's. So I mean, I understand your mindset there that they kind of scare you. And I mean, it's any given Sunday he can come out there and have the game of his life and beat the Lions in the playoffs. But I don't see any team in the NFC that can stop them if they just keep playing the way they've been playing. And if Goff doesn't give up 5 picks, that game would have been completely different this past
Right.
weekend.
Right. Well, you want to take a look ahead at week 11 and see what we got
Sure
on
do.
tap for this coming up weekend. And of course, it is going to start with Thursday night football here tonight as this show drops. We will see the Washington Commanders in Philadelphia to play the Eagles. The
I want to
early
see that one.
games are as follows. We will see the Packers and the Bears in the NFC North Showdown. The Jacksonville Jaguars will be in Detroit to play the Lions. Minnesota and Tennessee. We will also see the Raiders against the Miami Dolphins. The Los Angeles Rams will be playing in New England against the Patriots. The Browns and the Saints, Indianapolis and New York Jets, the Baltimore Ravens against the Pittsburgh Steelers. That's going to be a big game, I feel like. The late games, Atlanta will be in Denver to play the Broncos, Seattle against the 49ers, and the Kansas City Chiefs will be in Buffalo. Then on Sunday night, the Bengals will be in LA to play the Chargers. And then for Monday night football, the Texans and the Cowboys. The Battle of Texas, as it were. So that's what week
And
11 looks
Houston's
like.
gonna fucking murder them.
Yeah,
Seems like a week with a few good games, but the rest of the games are just good teams against bad teams.
yeah,
So we'll see how that week. It's not the most exciting week. I mean, there's some good matchups. I want to see what Washington does against the Eagles. That'll answer a lot of our questions we were just talking about to see how good Washington is or how good the Eagles are. Obviously, I want to see the Chiefs game against the Bills. That's going to be. I mean, I honestly think you're going to see, just like I said earlier in the show, the Chiefs play up to teams that they need to play up to, and they play down to shitty teams. You know what I mean? I think this is going to be a really good game. But we'll see how Buffalo is this year too, because the Buffalo they've lost to good teams and they've won all their games against bad teams. They've won the
right,
games that they needed to win, but they haven't really beat any really, really good teams yet. So we'll see how they stack up against the Chiefs this year and kind of get a better feel where the Chiefs are, heading into the second half of the season here. The Lions, Jacksonville, I this has the possibility of just another put 50 points on the board if they want to game. Um, we'll see how I mean, the rest of there was a lot of other games on there that just, I mean, you can look at it and go, this is a good team against a bad team. You can see how, but at least 25% of those bad teams are going to beat those good teams this week because that's how the NFL goes.
right,
But it should be another good week in the NFL and kind of get a feel and maybe get some spread, in the North. Hopefully, Minnesota and Green Bay both find ways to lose this week. I really want to see Green Bay lose this week to keep the the streak with the Lions thing going. So if Chicago can find a way to win that game, just win it, and that kind of takes them out of the North a little bit farther.
right. Well, we spent a tremendous amount of time this week, focusing on the NFL and all of the other goings on. But that's not the only sport that's going on right now. Here in the state of Michigan, we do tend to focus on our more locally based teams. And with that, let's take a look at what's on tap this week for the other teams here in the great state of Michigan. The Detroit Red Wings are spending this week on the road on the West Coast. They will be in Anaheim on Friday. Then they will play the Kings on Saturday. They get a day off Sunday. Then they will be playing in San Jose against the Sharks. The Detroit Pistons will start this stretch of their schedule on the road with games in Toronto and Washington before coming home on Monday to play the Chicago Bulls. Michigan football is off this week, but Michigan State will be at Illinois. Um, so that's what we got to look forward to. But Tim, there's another big event that's kind of on our radar that's garnering a lot of headlines, a lot of attention this week. One of these special attraction events, and
Yep.
earlier in the show we were talking about Jerry Jones and um, building his palace and stuff like that. Well, as luck would have it, this particular event is going to be taking place at AT&T Stadium in Arlington, Texas, this Friday. We are going to be seeing one of the more anticipated special attraction fights. The baddest man on the planet, Iron Mike Tyson, is going to step into the ring with Jake Paul. And it does happen as part of a live stream event on Netflix. Um, I was kind of torn on this whole thing, Tim. Tyson, without a shadow of a doubt, one of the icons of boxing, one of the greatest heavyweights of all time, if not the greatest
Yeah.
of all time. Jake Paul has had success in these types of events. I don't put a whole hell of a lot of stock into this because it's not going to really move the needle one way or the other than it's a payday. It's a one off. It's a special attraction. But what kind of mindset do you got to be in if you think that even at 50 something years old that this motherfucker is going to be able to knock out Mike Tyson?
You know, we were talking about this at work today, and everybody's throwing out their predictions of what's going to happen. And I look at it. Mike Tyson's 58 years old. Jake Paul's in his 20s. I know Jake Paul's only been doing this a short period of time, and we were kind of watching highlights of the Jake Paul fights, and we were watching Mike Tyson kind of spar. And I mean, Mike Tyson still has the speed. He still has the power. The one thing that I'm missing from Mike Tyson right now is that killer that he used to be. I mean, he's doing these interviews, and not once have I heard him say that he was going to eat Jake Paul's kids. Like, I was waiting for that. Like, like I was waiting for that. I want to see that killer come back out. He seems like a happy grandpa now, Like, I want to see the killer come back, and that kind of scares me for Mike Tyson because I don't see that killer in him right now. I know it's got to be in there somewhere, but I'm not seeing it right now, and that kind of makes me feel like this isn't the same Mike Tyson we're used to seeing. He's 58. He doesn't have that killer mentality anymore. I know somebody had brought that up to him. He said he doesn't need that anymore. He hasn't been in an actual pro boxing event in 20 something years. I know he fought a few years ago. It was an exhibition. They weren't trying to kill each other. It was a good fight. He won that. But this is going to be different. This is a sanctioned bout. Jake Paul is coming out to try to knock him out. And as we know from watching Jake Paul does have knockout power. The
Sure.
the kid's got power. He's got a chin. We've seen him go the distance with actual. He fought Tommy Fury. He lost. It was debatable. I watched that fight. There was a good chance that he could have won that fight too. He lost on points. But stood up that whole fight and went the distance. He's got a chin. Now, Mike Tyson is one of the hardest punchers ever. At any point in time, if Jake Paul lets him get inside of him, he's gonna light him up, and he could tag him once and put him down. It's you still have that's the last thing to go on a boxer is that power. He might not be as fast as he was when he was younger, but he's probably going to be the fastest thing Jake Paul's ever been in the ring with. So Jake Paul's going to have to keep his distance. He's going to have to throw that jab, and he's going to have to just stay away from Tyson because that's the only way that he stands a chance. But everybody was saying that Tyson was going to win this fight, and I hope that he does. I hope he put Jake Paul in his place. But for some reason, something deep down inside of me is saying that Jake Paul's going to win this fight.
I can understand that. Here's how I see it going. Mike Tyson is low key crazy.
Yeah.
Like, I don't give a fuck how old he is. You can look at that man's eyes and know that there's still something unhinged in there. And I think what's going to wind up happening, I think going into this thing on Friday, he is trying to present himself in a certain kind of way in a professional manner to make this fight seem relevant for to shut
Yeah.
the critics up that aren't taking this seriously. I think what's going to wind up happening is he's going to take one good shot to the face, and something is going to snap inside him. I think it's going to revert him right back to that killer instinct that you were just talking about, and Jake Paul's not going to stand a chance. If this
Yeah.
thing goes beyond 4 rounds, something's off. I totally see the first couple of rounds of Tyson getting his footing back under him, for the lack of a better term. I
Yeah.
see Jake Paul, even though he is dangerous, and yes, he's got power, and he is a tremendous athlete. I am not taking anything away from that. Him or his brother Logan. They are tremendous natural athletes. But this dude has never stepped into an environment like this. And there can be that argument that with boxing especially, age does start to come into play. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like they're obviously not going to be as dangerous as they once were. You can make that argument for the majority of the fighters across the world. I mean, we saw George Foreman make a comeback. We've seen, all these guys try to get back in after a layoff or an injury or things of this nature. Age does come into play. However, I feel like Mike Tyson is a different fucking animal because he just there is something in there that is unhinged, and he thrives on this kind of environment. He's been needing something like this. And it's going to take one shot in the right place at the right time, and down goes Paul. So anybody that's counting Mike Tyson out, I think he's taking this fight a hell of a lot more seriously internally and behind the scenes than what he has put out there and what we can expect. And it's certainly what Jake Paul can expect, because they're
Yeah.
coming into it with two different mindsets. Yeah, they both want to win, but they want to win for different reasons. Um,
Well, I
I,
think to say that they both want to win, I think one really needs to win and the other one, it doesn't really matter. Like Jake Paul needs this fight more than Tyson needs this fight.
mhm,
If Tyson loses this, he's just the 58-year-old man who lost to a 20-something-year-old kid who's coming up. Jake Paul loses this, his whole track gets thrown off. He just lost to a 50-year-old former champion who hasn't boxed in 20 years. You know what
right,
I mean? Like he needs this fight more than Tyson does. This will probably be Tyson's last fight ever.
right,
Either way, you know. But this won't be Jake Paul's last fight ever. Like he wants to become a champion, so he definitely 100% needs this fight more than Tyson. So you got to look at that too. Like, and I said at the beginning of this, I pray that Mike Tyson wins this. Like, just because I love Tyson, I want to see him go out on that that high point. He beat Jake Paul. Jake Paul will come back from it if he loses. It's just going to take him longer. Um, but Tyson, even if he loses, he's getting a big payday, and it doesn't really matter. It's not going to change his life one way or the other if he loses, but it will change Jake Paul's.
yeah. It's a good point. Real good point. All right. Well, we are certainly going to be looking forward to that, and I'm sure we'll be breaking that down a little bit more next week, when we come back. And I think we're going to continue doing these live streams as we're recording our shows, Tim. Just like we said at the top of the program here, to bring everybody as current information as possible. And then, of course, this will be available the following day on the traditional RSS feed. We encourage everybody
Yeah.
to check us out on our website, pfcnetwork.net, for all the latest information on all of our shows here. And check out our online store, pfcstore.printify.me, or pfcholidays.printify.me. That's all of our Christmas inspired merchandise. And another big drop of new merchandise happens this weekend. So I'm very much looking forward to that. If you or anybody on your Christmas list this year, your holiday shopping list, are fans of the show, we've got one-stop shop for all of the great shows and merchandise and anything you could possibly want with the logos or designs of these shows. Head on over to printify.me. Just look for the PFC Entertainment Network. And we certainly appreciate everybody tuning in here live for the live stream and for those who have tuned in after the fact on the RSS feed. For Tim Sheridan, I'm Jason Clouse. Go out, be awesome to yourselves and to each other. We'll see you next week, right here on the Sports Reel podcast on the PFC Entertainment Network.
Go Lions, go Chiefs, go Tyson.
All right. All right,
Hey,
you are uploaded.
We are all loaded too. What's that?
Nice. I was like, you're uploaded.
I know. No, we didn't have no lag like we did last week.
Mm-mm.
This week was so much better than last week. I don't know what the fuck happened last week.
I don't either. And I wonder.
Good episode this week.
Went by quick. Like I
Yeah, it
kept
did.
looking down. And I was like, holy shit, this is where we're at.
Yeah. Good episode. I like the live thing because I was able to interact with people. So it's perfect.
Yeah, I seen that too because it kept popping up on my screen. Chat. 5 chats. I'm like, oh no shit. So
yeah,
I hopped over here for a second. But yeah, because it tells me who's watching on what platform, and we had 2 people on YouTube.
Nice.
For a minute, so that's new. So I mean, I will take that and be like, okay, we're